Welcome to EntreProgrammers Podcast, the podcast for developpreneurs, with your hosts, Josh Earl, Derick Bailey, and John Sonmez, the podcast where you get to be a fly on the wall listening to real conversations of three developers trying to tackle the challenges they face as entrepreneurs.
Hey, Josh Earl here with a quick message from our sponsor, Signal Leaf. Look, doing a podcast is a lot of work. The last thing you need is a podcast hosting service that makes you jump through a bunch of hoops just to get your episodes published. My co-host Derick created Signal Leaf with one goal in mind: to build the easiest podcast hosting service out there. It's the simplest way to get your new podcast up and running quickly and without any hassle. If you're thinking of starting your own podcast, just use Signal Leaf. Then you can get back to polishing the lyrics for your own official podcast rap song.
We're live now. Well, sort of. We're private live pre-recorded.
Private live pre-recorded. Enterprise Edition. Yeah. Community Technology Preview 1. Throw the Microsoft marketing machine at that name.
All right. Well, we have a guest with us today.
We do.
Craig, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah. My name's Craig McKeachie, and I'm a big fan of the podcast, so happy to be on with you guys.
Awesome.
Nice. And you recently released a big product, right?
Yeah, so my main thing right now is the JavaScript Framework Guide, which people can check out at javascriptframeworkguide.com. And it's basically like a book that compares and contrasts AngularJS, EMBER, and Backbone, and talks about a lot of the pros and cons and helps you kind of quickly learn them all by learning them together instead of like learning them separately, which would require you to read 5 or 10 books, that sort of thing. So that's the premise of it. I think I heard you mention in the last podcast, I have embarrassingly spent probably 7 or 8 months of my life, a large portion of it, writing this book. And don't do this would be my first advice to people. But it was just, I think the topic was quite big, even though it's something I'm passionate about and care about and so forth. So it being a big topic was probably the big mistake there. So.
I don't think there's a quick way to write a full-scale book. I mean, the one that I wrote, the Backbone Plugins book, it's like 250 pages. That took me, it was spread out over about 2.5 years of writing that, but it took me probably 8 months to a full year of full-time work to actually write that book. It's just ridiculously hard to write a book, and mine didn't even go through any kind of professional editing or anything, so there's still all kinds of atrocious grammar and spelling mistakes in there.
Right. I did have some professional editing done, but that slowed the process, and
right.
Yeah, it's self-published like yours though, same thing, and
yeah.
My book, I think, turned out to be about 270 pages. I think John's got us all beat, though, with his books, right?
Yeah, with only doing it in 3 months, and how many pages was it? Like 1,000?
I think it's like 350 or so. So
350?
Somewhere around there. I don't know.
Right.
John is the Stephen King of programming book writers.
Yes.
Write a book every 30 days, 1,000 pages.
But yeah, I mean, it's a huge undertaking. Like any kind of project of that size is. But most people don't take on a project of that size. So
right.
There's a thinning of the herd of if you can make it through and get a book out or do a project of that size.
Yeah, Craig. One thing I was wondering is that do you have a full-time job in addition? Are you a consultant? Like, how do you? How much time did you put into this during that time frame?
Yeah, that's a good question. So basically, what happened is I've had a full-time job up until January 1st of this year, and so now I've been doing this sort of thing for 8 months, I guess now. But the truth is, before that, I kind of gave it a trial run. I had built up some vacation days at my last employer. So like November of last year or October, I forget which it was, but one of those months I spent almost a whole month writing like a couple chapters of the book just to kind of try it out. And And so, yeah, that's sort of how I get to the 7 or 8 months. I did, start a podcast in that meantime. I have this podcast, frontendcast.com, that's like a front-end developer podcast. And I started a blog for the first time. I never really blogged. I was your, typical .NET guy in an enterprise.
What are you saying about us? No, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I'm not too different than my audience. I like to think, and I think we've all been there. And so what made me make the leap is I actually joined a mastermind through, like, you guys are familiar with, like, Software by Rob and the rest of us and all that. I met up with some guys in the Micropreneur Academy. I joined that like a couple years ago. And I joined a mastermind group, and there was these conversations, it's a private one, where you get to the point where it's like, so Craig, why do you have a job? Like, kind of questions. And it's not as obvious as it sounds. It's not, oh, I've got a windfall of money from these side projects, even though I really haven't had a failed one. I haven't had a huge success from my side projects. But it was more like, okay, it sounds like your wife, makes a decent living, and you live in this house, and, you don't have a problem financially with doing it. So, why don't you just do it? And I think that was a really hard thing for me to accept and make the leap. But, once I've done it, it's kind of like, why didn't I do that sooner?
Yeah. I was in the same boat. My wife's a professor at Baylor University, so even if I completely, totally failed miserably and made no income, it's not like we would starve. We'd probably have to move, but, that wouldn't be the end of the world.
And I kind of felt like being in the Micropreneur Academy, everybody in there is sort of more in Josh's shoes, where we've all got full-time jobs. And so I felt like I was cheating when I quit, right? Like, because I had, quote-unquote, succeeded or whatever. But I wonder myself whether I could have got to, amounts of money that were twice what I was making at my normal job and still thought, I don't know if it's right time yet, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can definitely get there. I mean, I waited a while before I quit when it was like, well, my the Pluralsight income was already like 4 times my regular income, and I was still like afraid about what about medical insurance and
Yep.
And then but that was good. I like how you did the month of figuring it out too, because I think that's I mean it sounds like I'll venture to guess that you're doing pretty much what I always advise people to do, which is like test it out first, because you're gonna make sure that you've got it financially figured out. Because so many people now just leap and they just cut the cord and they're like, okay, I need to go and do my thing, and they don't have a financial plan, so they've got what I call a gun to their head, and then they've never tried working for themselves, because this is the thing that a lot of people disagree with, that I always say is, but when you work for yourself, you sit down and you work 8 hours in the day, you work 8 hours in the day. But when you work for someone else and you work 8 hours in the day, you work like 2 hours in the day. Yeah. I mean, hard work, 2, 3 at the max. And so if you never tried that out before you cut the cord, all of a sudden you're just like, wow, I don't understand why this is so hard. I don't understand where my time's going. And so that's pretty neat. Like, was that? I guess you probably had some advice from micropreneurs that had. Is that where you came up with that, or did you? I mean, were you thinking about that, or?
No, I think someone in the mastermind, suggested it to me, and I think they just realized that I was a little. I'm quite risk intolerant for an entrepreneur. I think a lot of us are actually, surprisingly. Yeah. I've heard Rob Walling say multiple times he's very risk intolerant, and I think that's true. We actually understand what we're doing. We're not just leaping blindly. A lot of times we understand too well what we're doing. So someone suggested that, and I think it was just sort of as a coping mechanism for me, which was smart, in my mastermind. So that, I'm very thankful to them for that. People talk about, the masterminds being very useful. So if I had advice for people, it would be, get in a mastermind or more than one, So.
Was that month hard? Was it harder than you thought? Like, for me, whenever I've tried to do that in the past, I fell into these horrible spirals where I would take like a week off, and then day one I would get done about a third of what I wanted to get done. Day two I would waste feeling guilty about day one, and then it just sort of, spiraled into a worse and worse and worse. And
Right.
I would blow the whole week. How did that go for you?
Ironically, I think what happened is during that trial month, it went pretty well because I was really, really determined and focused. But I would say what you're describing is sort of what I've experienced for the last, 8 months after that. It's like,
Yep.
Oh, well.
where it's like, can I? I've been listening to John say, you think you want your freedom, right? And I think that's a big personality trait of mine, sort of wanting my freedom. But yeah, that's a tough gift to get, like your freedom. It's a lot harder to swallow. And I think my wife has found it very interesting to watch me, and she doesn't get it, right? It's not logical. Like, why is this hard? Like, can't you just go, can't you take the day off and go watch the movies? Why are you beating yourself up about not getting this done today or that done today?
Yeah.
And it's hard to understand unless you're one of those people, I think.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, you've got to have that. I mean, it's weird. You have to have like a self-imposed discipline. I think in different aspects, right? Like I have to make everything life or death. Otherwise, it doesn't. So it's like, well, why do you produce a chapter, every single day? Like when you're writing a book, it's because I've made it in my mind. I've said it's life or death. Like no matter what happens, I have to do whatever
Right.
the thing is. I make it life or death so that I can't possibly, it's like a hard and fast rule. And
John's actually hired a beefy masked man to stand behind him with an axe. He doesn't get his chapter done.
Well, here's an interesting life or death story that is very, very similar. Like I did this to myself too because I got to like say April or so this year, and I pre-released my book on purpose, and it was a lot of it was written, but it wasn't done. But I pre-released it not because I wanted to test the market or anything like that. I pre-released it because I knew I promised them as part of the pre-release page that I would have it done in a month from then. So I basically like put this ticking time bomb on myself to like finish it, and boy was that motivating. It worked. It kind of drove myself crazy right before the summer, but it worked, right? Like you gotta, because like when we have constraints when we're at work, right? We have like deadlines and things, and those constraints are you almost have to create artificial ones in this world.
So I ran into that recently. I've been, you've been listening to the podcast, so you know how much I've been struggling with trying to prioritize things for myself and trying to step out of the details and understand the big picture and whatnot. And a very interesting thing happened in the last week. So last week, Josh started volunteering his time to help me out with the Google AdWords side of Signal Leaf.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly, my entire week was very clear to me.
Yeah.
I had no qualms about setting things aside and working on Signal Leaf because suddenly I had somebody else that I was accountable to.
Mm-hmm.
There was somebody doing work for me that had time and effort put into this that I was directly affecting. And so the work that I wanted to do, all of these things, all of the blogging, the Watch Me Code stuff, the client work, everything that I have going on, it was very easy for me to focus my actual time and say, okay, Josh needs these things in place. I'm going to get these things done. Otherwise, he's just going to get frustrated with me not doing anything and go spend his time somewhere else. I really want Josh's help. I'm going to get these things done. So having those kinds of constraints, having that accountability and that responsibility to someone else that's also working on this really helped me out in the last week.
I've had a similar experience actually this week from the other side. I've been wanting to do a good job and start to get the ball rolling here on this, and so it's really helped me. I have felt really relaxed and clear all week on exactly what I wanted to get done.
Yeah, I mean, I took it so far as to actually emailing my contact at Pragmatic Programmers and telling him, look, I don't think I'm going to be able to get these screencasts done this year. Maybe I'll be able to get to them next year. And just doing that was like a huge weight off of my shoulders and allowed me even greater focus on the things that I'm doing in the last week. And so it's just one little thing, just having Josh volunteer his time to help me out with AdWords, and me knowing that I'm spending money and Josh's time on Signal Leaf right now. That one thing really helped me focus in the last week. So the idea of constraints, the idea of having something to focus and narrow your attention, really, I think it's really important to have those things.
Oh yeah. I mean, and even kind of sometimes silly rules actually are important too. Like I'll give you an example. Like while I'm here in Hawaii for 2 months, my rule is, and this is going to sound a little bit silly, but my rule is that I don't eat. I'm fasting breakfast and lunch every single day. I'm only eating dinners, right? And the reason why I'm doing that is because I know that I'm going to be eating out. I'm going to be, and so like if I put that rule in place that I'm just never eating breakfast or lunch, then it's going to keep me like on a, and those rules are going to keep me in a narrow sort of path. And I'll sit, and that was kind of an arbitrary, but it actually keeps me somewhat disciplined in other areas as well, not just in diet, but now it makes it harder for me to not go to the gym while I'm here because I'm following this one strict thing that it's like a pain, like if there's some kind of sharpness that causes you pain that you have to follow, it causes your mind to be sharp in other areas. So it's going to keep me from going off the deep end, and like, because I could, there's a danger in like taking 2 months off, which is that you may never come back. You may never, like, you might mentally check out or screw up everything that you've got going because you're like, well, I'm in this drive mode, or I'm in this relax and not do anything mode, and you've got to be able to hold the tent down so it doesn't blow away. Right, while you're out, right, you got to put some stakes in the ground, otherwise you're going to be in big trouble. So having something, like, even if it's just a silly thing, that's a rule. Like, at some point I had the hours that I worked at home, like, that was like, okay, I can't come out of my office till 5 o'clock. That's going to keep me making sure that I'm actually treating this seriously, or whatever that rule is that keeps you disciplined. It'll work in multiple areas, because as long as you're obeying some kind of a discipline, then you tend to act in a disciplined manner. But if you just abandon everything and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna, every day I'm gonna just do what I want to do, you're not gonna get anything done ever.
Right. Yep. And my dad once told me, if you hate your current boss, you're gonna hate working for yourself even more.
Yeah.
Because when you're, and the point of what he was saying was, when you are your own boss, you have to be the one that disciplines yourself, and it really sucks sometimes. You can't just go do whatever you want whenever you want. You have to be the bad guy that sets the rules and sets the schedule and sets the constraints and does all these things. Otherwise, you're never going to get anything done.
Yeah. Right. True. So what about numbers? We should talk numbers since we're. You want to talk how's it going, Greg?
Yeah, it was funny because before we got this conversation, I was like, I don't know if I should ask you this. I ended up talking to my wife, but these guys are gonna want me to share numbers. Right? I'm all for sharing numbers, but should I be? It's like I think. She said, I think people, like, they want to buy something if they think everybody's got it and it's doing really, really well, this kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, but that's very true. But I said, I think this is different. Like, this audience is different. The real value is in, sharing these kind of things. So yeah, I'll definitely share. But it was funny when it came to the point, though. I actually had this hesitation. Should I do that? But I've emailed all you guys and told you different things, so it's not a big deal.
Right.
I think I could probably kind of break it down into 3 phases. Like, the pre-launch was almost like I ran and went back to work because it was so bad. Like, it was like a pre-launch, and I was really clear that the book wasn't done. So,
right.
Who wants to buy something that's half done, kind of thing. And I do think people do buy things that are half done, but I think a lot of times people kind of leave that in the small print and they don't make it so obvious that, it's half done, or they're very excited about it or something like that. But, I'd say I think it ended up around $1,200, $1,500 of sales around that time.
Nice.
And I was seeing, like, my my average, I have these 3 different packages, which makes some things very complicated, but in general, it tends to push up my lifetime value of my customer. is around $75 is what it seems like, which I was very happy with for that one sale or whatever.
Right.
And so you just launched that via your email list as kind of a soft launch, just put up a page, send an email, or did you do a sequence or?
Yeah, I did. I actually put that pre-launch. The email list was around maybe 700, 800 people at the time, not very big. I pre-launched to them. I did set up a sequence, basically copied a lot of Nathan Barry interviews, and put those, emails that I'd had from his launches, and that was basically most of the pre-launch sales. So I did do a little bit more for the launch. So fast forward to say second week in July or so, I launched the book. Had a bigger window. The pre-launch was only 24 hours. So it was really just those people on the list, are you going to buy kind of thing.
Right.
So, then on the second launch, I remember saying to my wife, I hear things about conversion rates all the time and average conversion rate on a site. You guys have said this stuff, but in my mind, my heuristics are 1% is like you're doing normal, right? But you're not doing bad, you're just doing normal or whatever. If you get up to 2%, you're doing a little bit better. But then conversions off these hot email lists seem to me like I'm not as knowledgeable about that, but I know it's supposed to be higher. I hear everything from 5 to 30% from different people, about how that's supposed to convert.
And so a lot of that depends on your list size.
Okay. And the source of the list.
Yeah, and the source as well.
The quality.
The quality of the list, how often you engage them, how big your list is. Like when I had 500 people on my list a year ago, I would get insane engagement. You get 80% open rates and 50% click-through rates. But now with 4,000 people, I get 30% open and 15% click. So it's a lot of it is there's a lot of variables that go into that.
Yeah, it depends, right? That's everybody's always the best answer for any of these questions.
Yeah. How big was your pre-launch list, and how did you get it before we go?
So the pre-launch list was, at the time of the pre-launch, it was 800. It grew closer to 1,000 by the time I launched in July. And I would say this is the part that I'm still sort of amazed about and think kind of validates the idea. Is that I basically wrote an epic blog post back in September of last year to kind of test the idea of it. It was called Choosing a JavaScript Framework, and it got a lot of social shares. Peter Cooper shared it on JavaScript Weekly, and stuff like that. And it kind of took off virally, to the point where I had over 1,000 social shares, which I've never seen on any post. And 100 comments, 100 people bothered to actually make a comment, and that's not, spammers, that was real people. So
you did that with the idea of possibly writing a book on the topic?
Yeah, in fact, I kind of said I was going to, but this was one of my validation steps, sort of.
Nice.
But what was funny about it is I actually pushed the publish button, back in September, if you look at the post, and then a couple months later, I'd emailed friends and stuff like that. I actually kind of started to do the hard work of emailing people I didn't feel comfortable emailing and promoting it, right? And that's when, I emailed Peter Cooper and he shared it. That had a big impact. But there was 3 or 4 other things like that. I, quite honestly, I coordinated a little bit of a upvote on Hacker News, but
nice.
Which is not a repeatable strategy. But I wanted people to look at it and say, I'm interested in this or I'm not interested in this. So, I have not done that since, and it kind of shows. Hacker News is changing quickly too, as we all know, the content that's on there. But those 2 things probably were most of the push of it, but it was enough to get it to go viral. I really, at the time, if you look back at my Twitter history, I probably had tweeted 4 times in my entire life, and really didn't know what I was doing with Twitter. Lately, I'm getting a lot more push, from the social channels in terms of pickup on that stuff. But long story short, that's about the size of the list. So I grew the list mostly from that one post, and I just keep promoting the same post. And it was funny because people, I was in Nathan Barry's Building Profitable Audiences, and it seemed like people just couldn't believe that one post got that much play. But it was like a 3,000 word post with tons of graphics and stuff. So
it was a really good post. I remember sharing it a few times myself.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks. And so, yeah, that was, I think what that taught me too is because I won't get into too much, but I've had some other businesses where I've done a lot of SEO things and so forth. And that article managed to like outpace like to do MVC. .com, which is, or to do MVC app, I forget what it is, but, Adi Osmani's, GitHub project that he's put thousands of hours into, around choosing a framework, and it was outranking it by the end because of the social proof. So the social signals are very strong in terms of SEO, and I think a lot of people blow that off because they can't really get those kind of social signals in other niches, but in our niche, like, social signals are getting turned up by Google every day, and I think they're incredibly strong in terms of SEO.
Yep. Yeah, I really like what you did there. I mean, that's kind of similar to how I stumbled into my book idea, only you did it ahead of time as a way to validate the idea. But instead of, I had the Hacker News thing happen to me, accidentally, and then realized that there was a book idea there. So, but yeah, I've given that advice to people before, is like, if you have a book idea, write a blog post about it first, and then do exactly what you did, promote the heck out of it, and see if you can get any traction with it. If you can't, if you spend 20 hours on that or 30 hours and you can't get any traction, then you've saved yourself months.
Yeah.
Right. Along those lines too, the whole promotion thing. This is something I didn't get until just recently, but I think like a lot of people's posts, like they don't really promote them. Like, they might tweet them once and they sort of let it die. And I've sort of developed this, like I've got a Word document that's got, 30 sites listed, 30 things to do, including like tweeting on my Twitter profile with a picture and doing this or whatever. 30 things I do now. And it used to take me like a day or a half a day, depending on, what I was doing to do that. And I've got it down to like the last article I just published a podcast, and I went through it in about an hour because, I've got the accounts for all the sites. I just kind of following a template of, go here and post it, go here and post it. I was interested to hear if you guys sort of follow that same process when you promote something, or how you guys handle that.
Not officially myself. That's something that I've been trying to start doing. It's something that I constantly think about doing. Like I want to get something like Buffer app where I can schedule a bunch of tweets out, but what I really want is something that will do repeated tweets over and over and over again, and I haven't taken the time to look at to see if Buffer or something else is going to do that. But what you're talking about is definitely something that I've been wanting to do. I did try to do that for a little while with Signal-Leaf. Whenever I blogged on Signal-Leaf, I would post it on various channels, Twitter, and go find other blogs and other places that were talking about it. And what I would do is provide some valuable comment on somebody else's blog, and then say, oh, by the way, if you want to know more about my opinions on this, go see this blog post that I just wrote. Not comment spam by any means, really engaging in the article for whoever else I was reading. Somebody else's blog post, read it, understand it, make sure that this is something that I can actually engage with and be a part of the comments on, and provide some value in the comments, and then in my valuable comment link back to my Signal-Leaf blog posts. And that worked really well. It's a little less scalable than what you're doing probably, because it requires me to really read and understand the things that I'm looking at, versus if you have places where you can just go and log in and post your link and it's there for people to do whatever with. That's a lot easier to scale, because you can automate some of that, and you can just get really good at clicking really fast and doing what you need in some of those sites.
Yeah. That's a great strategy. I haven't done that either. I want to someday when I have more time to blog. That's going to be the strategy that I've come down to really liking with blogging is doing really long, investing a lot of time in a post, and then promoting the heck out of it. Like I'd rather do that. because I've had much more success. Like most of my, I've seen the blogging I have done. I've definitely seen a huge correlation between the amount of time I spend on it and the amount of attention it gets.
Right.
So I got the guest post up on Smart Passive Income this week, and that took.
That was an awesome idea. By the way, like I heard what you did with that, and I was like, that's the perfect thing to do with that post, right?
Yeah, and and it was funny because I was worried that Pat was going to beat me to the punch. So he was running. I might have mentioned this already, but he was running a giveaway, and somebody pinged me. Paul, the guy whose podcast I was on, he pinged me and he was like, hey Josh, Pat is running a contest. You'd better get on this. Get your post out before he does. And then I was like, I wonder if I could just use Pat's blog.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was gonna land that, but I probably put 15 to 20 hours into that post maybe, but it's definitely, I think long term it's definitely gonna be worth it. And when I want to grow my blog, that's my plan. I'm actually planning to spend probably more time writing for other people's blogs than my own initially, just because it's very demoralizing to write into a void. And getting that, when you want to jumpstart it, I really think that having a few epic posts of your own that you promote and then guest posting is like the best use of your time for the first few months anyway.
Yeah,
See, I basically. Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. I was just gonna say I'm just getting to that guest posting stage. Like I've just started trying to line up some guest posts, and I don't know why, but that's kind of been a block for me. Like I've done the epic post on my site, but I haven't gone to other sites. But I'm looking forward to that. But I kind of want to. I think I can learn things too. By posting other people's sites.
There was a really good post about about this stuff that we're talking about, and like the guy's strategy was, I'm going to put my best writing on other people's blogs. So he would really put a lot of effort. I mean, he'd spend 10, 20 hours on a blog post for Noah Kagan or Pat Flynn or whatever, and it really does pay off. It really does.
Yeah, I actually posted one of my book chapters from my Backbone Plugins book on Tech.pro. They let me. They have a pretty open policy about being able to reuse content. So I took my chapter on sorting and filtering, sorting, filtering, displaying Backbone collections, and put that up on Tech.pro, and that got me quite a bit of traffic for the book as well as my blog. But in terms of guest blog posts and building your audience and writing into the void, I got pretty lucky with that myself. Because 8 years ago I was blogging at DerickBailey.com, which is what I'm doing again now. But I only had a couple of hundred subscribers, RSS subscribers. I would get maybe a couple of hundred views a month from that. It wasn't a whole lot, but I ended up joining the Los Techies community, and through blogging with a community, it was a lot like guest blogging, because I had other people posting on this site that were generating a lot of traffic, and that allowed me to earn new traffic quickly because other people were already coming to the site, and now they were being exposed to my writing. And then when I went and changed my career paths a few times, I went from .NET to Ruby, and then from Ruby to JavaScript. And when I did that and I started blogging about those things, it was like starting over and blogging into a void and not really having any kind of response or interaction with people, because the people that were reading my posts were no longer reading because they didn't care about whatever that new technology was. But through persistence and through the continuous traffic that other people on the site were bringing in, I slowly gained, and then very rapidly gained, a new audience in whatever that new technology was. So I think there really is a lot of value in guest posts, in hijacking other people's traffic, in being a part of a community where there's going to be a lot of traffic that you can get in front of on a regular basis. And whether that's a site like Tech.pro or a SitePoint, like where Josh is doing some work now, they have a lot of technology articles there, or some of these other up-and-coming community-based article sites, there's a lot of opportunity out there to get your name in front of very large audiences to grow your audience quickly.
Yeah, that's true. Actually hadn't done to answer Craig's question. I'm not doing the promotion like I should. So we all need to make that on our list.
Right. Funny thing is, I know how to do that because that was part of my job at Derick last year.
Yeah, that's true.
Every time I wrote a post, I had to go put it in certain places. So I know how to do that stuff. I never seem to actually do it though.
Yeah. Derick, I'd love to talk to you. I'm not going to bore the audience with that, but the places you put it, that would be an interesting list. See if I'm missing any. Let's put it that way.
It was actually a really small list. It was mostly Hacker News, Reddit, and Google Plus, and a couple of other smaller sites that are similar to Hacker News and Reddit. I can't remember which ones they were, like lobster.es or something like that.
Wow. What is that?
Yeah, it's a really small one.
Yeah, it's probably about fishing, and you just didn't realize it. So,
No, it was.
You wrote in a library called Albacore, and you got stuck on this fishing thing. You think, that's programming, right?
It's a funny sounding name. I realize that, but it's like it's the hipsters Hacker News because nobody knows.
Oh gosh. I thought
Hacker News is not hipster enough. So.
No, Hacker News is just douchebaggery. That's all it is.
No, I always, whenever I picture someone on Hacker News, like replying to posts, I always picture someone sitting in their dorm room, like, man, I'm such a fucking genius. This guy is an idiot. And they're like, if I were in like 10 years in my career, I would already be a billionaire, dude. Like,
exactly. So we kind of strayed off on a lot of different topics here, but you, Craig, recently ran a giveaway, which Josh and I have also recently run. Tell us about that. I want to hear how that went.
Well, first of all, I've got to say thank you guys, right? Like, because this is a great idea, and I clearly just took it from the show, right? Like,
right.
So this is thank you guys. But long story short, I ran a giveaway very similar to what you guys have done. In fact, I emailed Josh a few times and Derick a couple times about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, honestly, Josh, your feedback about making it more general and not so specific was gold, right?
Absolutely.
So, and my first one was, like you said, it was all like JavaScript MVC books, and it didn't feel right, and then Josh said, hey, maybe you should make that a little broader, more of a JavaScript. And it took me switching out a couple books and changing the wording a little bit, but I think it had a lot bigger appeal. It ended up getting about 7,300 subscribers.
Wow.
Oh, nice.
And what was your initial email list size on that?
Oh, so before I did that contest, my email list, I've got one in MailChimp and one in Drip, which is another story, but
join the club.
Yeah, all of us.
My current email list is around 920, 960, something like that, like my one that I've already launched to. And then there's the 7,300 people that signed up for the contest, although, the downside of the contest is, one piece of advice, if anybody's going to do what I did and steal this idea, I would set up something like, one of the mail, through WordPress, set up one of the mail deliverability services, like Mandrill, or I can't remember what the other ones are, because I definitely got a lot of people who didn't confirm, and I don't think it was because they were saying, I'm not going to confirm to this. I think it's because I've got several people saying, I found your email in my spam,
Yeah, no, even, I use Mandrill on my WordPress blog on DerickBailey.com, and so all of my emails that were going out to all of my entries were going through Mandrill. I mean, everything set up the way it's supposed to be, and I only had 50% of my people confirm.
Right. So let me ask you this. How did you guys handle the confirms? Because I wasn't sure, should I still email the people or shouldn't I? Because to me, I'm thinking this went into a box. You know what I mean? Like, and I use double opt-in on all my other emails and stuff. Right. But I'll be honest, I literally sent to everybody. I didn't treat them any differently. I went ahead and sent them the initial emails. But I was curious how you guys handled that situation.
So I treated mine. I split mine up. I did email everyone. I treated them differently though. So the people that confirmed, I kind of sent them an email, introduced myself, said, hey, I'm sending you email now. Hi.
Right.
Here's who I am. Here's who won the contest. So they knew it wasn't just a scam. And then I kind of teased some of the stuff I was going to be sending out. So that went out to everybody that confirmed. Then everybody who didn't confirm, I sent a similar email to them, and that cost me a freaking arm and a leg.
Yeah, it did.
But so I sent them a similar email, but it was more, it was a little bit more like, hey, I'm not sure if there's a chance that someone else entered your email address. Like I was a little bit, more polite, and I said, just scroll down and unsubscribe if you don't want to hear from me. And then so I sent them in 2 batches, and then I basically got a ton of unsubscribes from that second list, the people that didn't confirm.
What kind of percentage were you thinking?
Oh gosh,
it
was no. So I think I could pull it up actually. Give me a second. It was like,
high enough that
MailChimp
told him he was going to get his account shut.
Yeah, they weren't happy. It wasn't that bad. I mean, it was like 6% or something, but from one email.
Yeah.
from one email. Yeah, they want to see.
Like, we're trying to have vacation today. Like, we've got half our staff off, so we don't appreciate your high unsubscribes. Like, we have to look at that stuff. So,
I did hear that little rant on the last show. I was cracking up when I heard that one.
Yeah. So let me look here. I can tell you exactly. But I think it was about 6% unsubscribed, and they were. And I did get I did get some people kind of saying "F you," There were some people, like I mentioned, thought that everyone was getting a copy of Sublime, like I was Oprah. And yeah, that was pretty comical.
Josh's favorite things.
Okay,
wow.
Actually,
I might play that over and over again. Just take that out. Just play Derick doing that over and over again on the internet.
Yeah, I think this is the one here. Yeah, I think it actually was only. Oh no, sorry. Let me do view report here. So I sent it out to 119,000 people. And yeah, so the big one was the bounces actually. Okay, so the big one was 23,000 bounces, and because I got I had people trying to game the system.
Right.
And there were email I couldn't get them all, but I got I cleaned up a lot of them because mine just was so popular. But the unsubscribes was about 2,400 actually. That's not that bad, but it was high enough that MailChimp was like.
Right.
What are you doing? And they didn't suspend my account, but they did send me a warning. So, but then after that, I just kept. So then I pretty much just sent them regular emails after that. Like I sent them 2 or 3 emails over the next week to try to shake out anybody, force people to unsubscribe that weren't interested. And then what I've done is that now I've pulled everybody, all the 3-star subscribers out of MailChimp. Those were all people who at least opened something and didn't unsubscribe. So I pulled all those people out and put them all in drip with my regular list. And now I'm in the process of finishing up with that same list, and I've been sending out my weekly tips to them, and it's been laughably low open rates. Like like I think actually this last one got like an 8% open rate, which is pretty good. It's better than the week before. But
what do you guys consider good open rates, real quick? I mean, I know it depends on situation.
Yeah.
What are you nervous about?
So for me, I want to see, like for my type of list, I want to see north of 40%.
Yeah, I agree with that. A year ago, I was getting 60-70% open rates on a lot of my emails. Right now, let me look at my reports in MailChimp real quick. I'm getting 38, 40, 41, 46, 45, 37, 39. So right around 40% open rates for me, which is pretty good considering, I've grown my mailing list by 3,500 people in the last year. Actually, back to your original question, after my contest was over, I completely ignored all of the people that did not confirm. I split them out, and I still have their email addresses in a spreadsheet, but at this point it's been so long, I'm not going to do anything with that half of the list. I'm going to do another giveaway sometime soon though, and I'm going to do it more generic like what you did, Craig. And when I do that, I'm going to take more of Josh's approach, where I split the people that confirmed versus did not confirm, and I'm going to slowly introduce the unconfirmed people to what I do through a separate separate list or a separate something, a separate segment. I don't know what it'll be exactly, so that I can I can recuperate some of those.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm gonna probably reclaim so I've been sending out. So I'm down to around my last weekly email went out this week. I sent it to 75,000, and these were the people that hadn't opened my emails really. As of the time that I carved out the 3-star subscribers, and looks like I got 6,400 opens on that last email. So that's a lot. That's a lot of people that I would have just dropped off.
Yeah.
So
that's my whole list.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it was worth. MailChimp. I've paid MailChimp well over $1,500 in the last 2 months. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you guys were talking about the pay-as-you-go plan last episode. I gotta tell you the funny thing that I shouldn't say this because they might come after me or whatever, but I switch. I figured out switching over to pay-as-you-go for things. So I had a regular account with my current mail list of 900, right? Mm-hmm. And I switched over to pay-as-you-go at one point because I knew I needed to work on the book and I wasn't going to send a lot of emails, right? So I switched over to pay-as-you-go. Well, the autoresponder feature stays on when I switched to the free plan, and the autoresponder feature has stayed on.
Oh, nice.
So, apparently there's a little glitch in their system, but since I'm transitioning over to Drip, I think
as soon as they all come back from vacation, they'll be all over that, I'm sure.
As soon as MailChimp comes back from vacation, they'll get that fixed.
Labor Day's coming up, right? They're going to be like,
Monday, that's right.
What are you guys doing?
I'm surprised I didn't see that message when I logged into MailChimp right now, because I just logged in.
Yeah, me too, actually.
They should have shown me that message.
I think someone from MailChimp is watching.
Oh my
I think
God.
MailChimp's watching this. So
funny.
it's uncanny some of the
We
changes
need
that
a
are happening.
spin-off podcast where we just bash MailChimp the whole time.
And other places that we don't like. The I Hate Your Service podcast.
Oh, by the way, Josh, you could have saved. Did you see that email I sent? It was actually someone from your Flint Post.
Cindy,
you could have saved a whole bunch on a one-time email or a couple of times.
I might end up doing that the next time I do a giveaway so that I can weed out people.
Yeah, because I don't know how good it would work for list management. I don't think it has autoresponder and stuff. You'd have to manually set that up. But
they do have
for
autoresponders.
Oh, do they?
I suspect it's probably a similar. It's probably a. I don't want to bash Cindy because I've never tried it, but I think it's probably equivalent to MailChimp or maybe maybe probably less features than MailChimp, but a similar feature set.
Less features.
What is this tool?
So it's Sendy. They use
Sendy,
Amazon's email delivery service
Mm-hmm.
to send out emails. And the thing that you got to watch out with that is, since it's using Amazon's mail delivery service, you are responsible for all of the verification, the SP whatever records, the DKIM records, all of those mail legitimacy records and things. You are responsible for managing all of that with your domain and with your mailing list and everything else. And it's really easy to get yourself blacklisted.
Right.
Which is impossible to get off of.
Yeah, I know. I might have with my with my contest and how many bounce backs I got and stuff.
Right.
There's actually a decent chance I might have just gotten myself instantly blacklisted.
Yeah.
The other thing is they throttle. You're only allowed to send 10,000 messages a day at the base level.
Right.
And they throttle that there's a per hour limit too. So it might have taken days to get all my emails out.
Right.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. So it's essentially, I guess it's more similar to Mandrill, except a little bit more. Mandrill's their most raw, right? It's an API to send email, and then I guess this is probably one layer above it. It's an API, but you can also mass send through and a little bit more features, and then you got the MailChimps and the Drips and all that.
Right.
But yeah, I'm thinking about using something like Sendy, or I might even just write a little bit of code, because the API to send email through the Amazon mail delivery service is pretty simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys? I didn't talk about what I'm doing with the list or anything. I don't know I keep turning the questions on you guys and don't.
We should back up to the numbers though, because we never talked about your launch.
Oh, that's right.
How convenient.
Yes.
We're not letting you get off the hook.
That's right.
Before you're through, we're going to know your entire salary history, what your wife is making.
That's right.
How much is your house, your mortgage payment,
Did you pay cash for your car, or did you take out a loan? Was it used?
I do know a scary amount about you guys. Just remember that, all right? That's earlier episodes, right?
That's because we're dumb enough to actually tell everyone.
So I launched. See if I can make this a little more terse. So I did a little bigger launch. I can't remember if it was 72 hours, maybe. I think I did a 72-hour launch. So I did that. I basically sent to the same people, I sent to before. I didn't even bother to filter out the people who had bought because I just didn't have the time, basically. I was trying to, finish up the book and get it formatted and get everything uploaded and so forth. I did get some advice from different podcasts. Sean Fiorito, who did the Sketching with CSS book. That was pretty popular. I heard him on a couple podcasts saying, wow, people really want to pay with PayPal, like you're going to lose a lot of people with Gumroad, even though Gumroad's got that great checkout process. So I set up a DPD account. That was another thing I stole from you guys. Like I had never heard of DPD in my life, and I really been, happy with that in general. For what I use it for, which is just the PayPal checkout and so forth, it's not that bad. I did have a lot of pain getting conversions and analytics set up with that, and I'm still not sure I got it right.
Yeah, so, you probably don't have it right.
That's the thing that frustrated
I've seen conversions. I've actually seen conversions come through.
Yeah, I know. I've had it. I've had it partially working for a long time. It's really flaky, and I don't know.
Right.
We need to change our theme. It has to be EntreProgrammers. We love you, then we hate you.
We love you.
Just to get back to MailChimp for a second, I was like jumping up and down when I heard Josh say, those 7 screens you have to go through to send one email. I was like, that is so true. It is so painful. I'm like, honey, I'm going to send an email this morning. That's all I'll get done all morning, okay? I'm going to email my list. That's all I'll get done this morning.
All right, so you sent out those emails.
Anyway, so I sent out those emails. I'm going to avoid ever telling the story.
Yes.
And I did a sequence of, I don't know, I managed to send like an email every day, sometimes 2, during that time. I did the, here comes the launch, but you can't get to it yet. Here's the launch. The launch is ready, it's 20% off, with all the details all the details were in the first email, but they couldn't get to the list. And I did the launch email with the link. Then I did the best way I could come up with to be able to send them email and not feel like I'm just bugging the people, but keep them, reminding them. I didn't have any time to write a post. So I've been hearing over and over again about webinars. So I decided I'm going to do a webinar. I don't know what I'm doing this week, but right in the middle of my launch, I'm going to do a webinar. I go look at GoToMeeting, I look at Google Hangouts, I'm looking at all the posts, trying to figure out, what technology to use and how is it going to work. And I've literally got, a day or something. So I'm up at like midnight trying to figure out how I'm going to do this. And long story short, I ended up just using Google Hangouts, and I didn't have anybody else on it. I just took a bunch of questions. You can do like a Q&A. So I took a bunch of questions that people could text me, and I took a bunch from the email list. I had asked my list basically for questions beforehand, and I just answered the questions. So I just looked at the camera and answered the questions, and then recorded it and put it up on YouTube. But it gave me a chance to say, I'm gonna do a webinar today, and here's a recording of the webinar, or the webinar's starting, and here's a recording of the webinar. And I think it gave me a good chance to keep emailing the people during the time, and that I don't think it got me a lot more sales. But I kind of like that strategy I had been through Nathan Barry's relaunch of his authority book, which obviously I read before. But when I saw him doing that, I was like, it's really easy when you get a link and it's like, click this link and, watch, and I kind of made it like, you don't have to participate in this. You could just kind of, eavesdrop on this conversation,
right.
Kind of thing. And so I feel like that helped. Long story short, got to about I got another $2,500, maybe like up to the launch, and then sales trickled in after that, so I think it went up to like $3,500. So overall right now I'm around $5,000 or so, with the launch, maybe 50 some copies of the book sold.
Okay.
You've made more than most technical books probably ever do. so
yeah,
pretty good result.
I have a number of friends that have written technical books for some big publishers, and several of them have on multiple occasions told me that they would take the $10,000 upfront payment from the publisher and would never see a dime above that $10,000 payment.
Yeah.
Because the technical books in the big publishing industry, technical books don't sell huge dollar volumes except very rarely. I mean, you don't get $100,000 book sales in technical books very often. It's pretty rare. I mean, I'm pretty lucky in my book. I'm sitting at $17,000 in revenue from that book, so it's done well for me. But I think I'm at the end of life on that book unless I do something to revamp it and maybe update it for latest versions of Backbone or something. But I don't really have time to do that.
Yeah, I'm still heavily trying to market this book every day, and I'm kind of wondering at what point am I just trying to run uphill, but I think there's a lot more room still. I feel like, on mine.
Don't you have a number of things lined up where you're going to be able to promote the book some coming up soon?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I was supposed to yesterday record with Scott Hanselman for Hansel Minutes. He got really sick, unfortunately, so we didn't do it. But I think he seemed intent on rescheduling and so forth. So I'm on that. I've got JavaScript appearance on JavaScript Jabber lined up, although it's like in October. It's pretty far off.
Nice.
So those should be a big deal. I submitted a couple talks to CodeMash. I did a local JavaScript user group, and I don't think any sales resulted from that. So I'm kind of doing it just to get back to the community and get the brand out there and get people to know things. And I'm a big fan of that conference, so I kind of try to look at it like if I don't sell a book, you're not even really supposed to pitch it. I won't. You know what I mean?
Right.
Hopefully I do it. So you still have to get selected. It's real competitive on those things. But I've got a long list of things to still try. But I'm trying to pick carefully. Like I look at what if I hadn't done that contest first? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
That contest was the right next thing to do. You know what I mean? And so I think that with those, I've got people going through an autoresponder right now that should take about 20 days from that 7,300 list, and I've had about 7% of the list unsubscribe in total, not like on one email, but in total so far I've had about 7%. I'm getting not great. I'm still getting 40, 50% open rates overall, but each email it's dropping, so I think I'm at 35 or something like that, and not getting a ton of clicks. One thing I want to talk about, that sequence is basically like, spanned out over to only send a couple emails a week, but spanned out over a period of time to sort of build trust and give away a lot of free content and so forth. But one thing I did, I A/B tested with Drip a little bit, the first email in the sequence to see, I was trying to get people not to unsubscribe, so I sent like segments through the list to see if I could improve the messaging. And I did dramatically. Like the first email, it was like 3% unsubscribes, and then I pulled it down to like 1.5% unsubscribes for that email. So I'm kind of testing each email, but I'm kind of running out of stuff to test. Like the first email was really easy to improve on, I felt like, but the other stuff, people are going through all at the same time. My cohorts have kind of got all crunched together, basically. So I'm having harder time testing. And I just don't want to sink a lot more time into it because I feel like I'm not going to move the needle too much, on that. But my question is, one thing, there's these resource guides, which is basically like all the best links to, stuff related to JavaScript MVC frameworks that I did for each of the frameworks, and that I include with the book, and I'm giving it away free to the list to try to keep them on the list, basically. And I was debating, there's a hard sale at like the 20th day, the email that goes out on the 20th day. And I was debating whether to give that away before the 20th day, and at which point they might say, oh, I've got too much stuff to learn here anyway, so I don't want your book on top of that, or it could be a reciprocity thing where it's like, oh, you gave me something, so now I'm really in the mood, to give back to you and do this. So I've kind of currently I've got it set in the sequence to the very end, like as an extra sale. So I've got a hard sale, then I've got another educational email, then I've got another educational email that's a soft sell,
Right.
and then at the end I've got a, oh, by the way, I forgot to give you these guides, and if this looks like too much material to cover in the PS, then you should have bought my book, kind of thing. So
I'd say you need to give those guides to them fairly early on. Something I read a while back really has been resonating with me, and I've been trying to do this more, is the idea of you need to get engagement, first of all, so you need people to be opening those emails, but you also need them to be doing more than just reading emails. You need to get them in the habit of clicking something, of taking some action from your email. And you need it to be something, early on, it needs to be something that is low cost and high value to them.
Yeah.
So if there's a PDF that you can send to somebody and you say, here's all of this amazing information that you get just by clicking this link, very low cost, very high value, because they get a lot of information out of just downloading a PDF and having it. Even if they never open the PDF, they have it, they've engaged, they've taken action based upon the information that you're sending to them. And so then over time, you slowly increase the cost of the action and the value of the action. So by the end of it, you're asking them to spend $50, $150, $200 on your full package, and it's not this huge sudden, whoa, where did this huge cost come from? It's, hey, I've been engaged, I've been getting free stuff, I paid $7 for this thing here, I paid $50 for that thing there. Yeah, $250, I know this guy's providing enough value to spend $200 on this full package, because I paid $10 over here and I got $100 worth of value out of it.
Right. And with that said, you might actually, what I was going to suggest is you might try, if those PDFs are enough of a value, is selling them for $5 to that list as a tripwire, which is basically will establish the pattern so that if someone has paid you money, especially if they've entered their credit card information, then when you actually get to the bigger sale, they're like, oh yeah, okay, I'll buy.
I totally trust this guy. Yeah, and if you're already doing a campaign, an email campaign with them, the information that you provide in that email campaign is going to have value. It's not just going to be you saying nonsensical things. There's going to be real value in that. So you've got the initial interaction and engagement through the email campaign. Getting that first PDF sale for $5 is going to be, like John just said, that nice little tripwire to get people engaged and in the habit of actually buying something from you. So there's huge potential for constantly, continuously upselling them throughout this entire process. I think that's one thing that I'm doing pretty poorly with some of my mailing.
Okay. Yeah, I like that idea of possibly selling it to them. My one hesitation is, for me as a developer, like this is basically like a one-page PDF. There's 3 pages altogether for each of the frameworks that's got the curated best links I have. So it's essentially like it doesn't feel like enough value to me that I might get a reverse effect where I'm concerned where they'll be like, whoa, you just told me to spend $5 on this, isn't worth it. Like it makes me want to pull the price down to 99 cents or something, like something stupid. And it's not because I'm worried about taking their $5. I'm worried about whether they saw enough value from what I'm doing.
Well, you might price that 99 cents and see, or you might A/B test that a little bit and just see how that works. Like run some people through where you charge them and some people through where you gave them for free, because even the 99 cents barrier, just of purchasing something, and not to say that I'm following my own advice because I'm just making a pitch on that, but I want to set up a product, and even that's the other thing I was going to suggest too is it sounds like that you're going to want to set up a series of different products because obviously you're still going to advertise this, but if you're building an audience up, right, with I don't know how much cost you've sunk into it, but right now, right, you won't be able to make a living off of selling just this one thing. So but the audience that you build, you will be able to. So I would if I were you, not spend too much time trying to just market this thing, but trying to build the audience as much as possible while marketing it, and then get another product or two lined up, and then maybe get those price points in there where you have the lower cost thing, the higher cost one, and then if you've got like 5 or 6 different products, eventually that's going to be your sustainable business model eventually down this road that I would see.
I mean, I totally see that model, and that sounds like the sensible road. The problem is I'm a little burnt out on the product creation thing and a little scared that I'll start some endeavor that takes me another 7-8 months or something like that. So
do something really small, like the mastering JavaScript that I did, or the object-oriented thinking. I mean, they are essentially just long articles, long blog posts, but split up into multiple days worth of emails and turned into ebooks as well that you can buy if you don't want to get the emails.
One person that does a really good job at this is a guy named Bob Bly. He's a copywriter, and the dude has been crushing it for he's been writing books basically since 1980, and he just cranks them out. And he's got I'm on his email list, and he has dozens and dozens of short 30 to 50 page books that he sells for $20 or $30, and they're condensed. There's enough value there that they're pretty worthwhile, and I bought a couple of them. But he's got this huge lineup of products, and he just he hardly ever promotes the same thing twice on his list. It's just he's got a lot of them. So yeah, I definitely would not I would not jump back into another huge project if I were in your shoes. But like if you can carve off a piece of it, even if you don't feel like those guides you mentioned are worth $5, come up with something that is worth $5 or $10. Right. 10 or 20 pages of really tightly written, useful information of stuff that people are constantly asking you about is worth $5 or $10 at least. Maybe more.
I mean, I've sold 60 copies of my ebook version of the information that I give away for free with my Mastering JavaScript this. And I can almost guarantee if I would actually advertise that, promote it, talk about it more often, talk about the ebook version of it, that it would sell a lot more copies. But I don't really talk about it that much. And it's still
funny
sells.
Because I jumped on that list. I saw one of your Twitter ads or something, and I was like, oh, if I want to see this, I'll catch a screenshot of it and see what he's sending. And I honestly got to say, I think I want to make sure I said this there. I think you undervalue the quality of your stuff. I think your stuff is really good quality. Like that email is like really, really good. Like I was like, and it could be where somebody's coming from, but I'm out here. I've read a ton of stuff about JavaScript. You know what I mean? And I still thought it was good. And you talk about your stuff sort of being for not these advanced people. I think we're a little jaded being in our developer world sometimes of what segment of people are in different levels of knowledge about things. And so I think your stuff's more advanced, and you may just be running into the 1 or 2 people who are the 5% outliers or whatever. And they're making you think your stuff is not for advanced people, and it is. I think it's all good. I've been on Watch Me Code, and I think I've only watched 2 or 3 episodes, but the ones I watched were really, really good. I wonder too, if you gave away more of that content, whether other people would realize that. You go through all this effort marketing yourself. Right. It's just I think about Noah Kagan, and when he started AppSumo, he would give away maybe give away for a day your promises or whatever, just give it away for a day, find a way to give that thing away for a day, let it go totally viral on the internet, right? Because it would, one of those screencasts, and everybody be like, those screencasts are good. If you want to do JavaScript, I'm going over to Derick's, subscription service. But that's my 2 cents about that, because I think. I feel good about the quality of my stuff. I think I put a lot of time into it, but I hear you talking on the podcast, and I'm like, I don't think you get how good your stuff is. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's an interesting idea as well to give away some, because I have a lot of free episodes up there on Watch Me Code. I don't really promote them very much though.
I'm thinking about it when I studied SEO. Patrick McKenzie. I don't know if you guys. From Hacker News, he's really famous, Patio 11, right? Noah Kagan did an interview with him, or he actually had the Mixergy guy, Andrew Warner, right, do an interview with him. They recorded it, And he's like showing his screen and going through everything. And he gave that away free for 24 hours. And it's just insane. I can't imagine the number of people he got signing up for that. And then he put it up for sale after that. I'm still sure he still makes sales on it today. You know what I mean? And I downloaded it, and my computer crashed that has that video on it. So, you know, I've thought of going back and, you know, at different times when I need a question answered and buying that video. You know what I mean? Like, so from AppSumo. So I think that's a really interesting strategy for you, considering what you've got already. But,
right. So. Interesting idea.
So what else do you guys want to know? Sorry, I'm hogging up the.
So what kind of? I'm curious about what kind of costs you put into the product, like in the development of it, of hiring. Because I know, like, when I built my how to market yourself as a software developer, I mean, I didn't put a huge amount of cost in it, but I mean, I got semi-professional. Like, I paid someone to do covers for all my books that were in it. I paid for, you know, a bunch of different things to get it, you know, to that process. So did you, you know, what was your expenses or?
Right. I would say I kept it pretty low. Most of my expenses are in my head for the amount of money I could have made while I was doing consulting during that time. Right? Like,
opportunity cost.
Opportunity cost is killing me to this day. You know, I still, you know, sit there and go, why am I like what Derick says on some episodes, why do I not go back and do this? But I'm trying to look.
Right. Yeah. Did we lose him?
Get at, you know, from the long game. I've been successful at using contractors on Odesk. You know, the Micropreneur Academy is pretty good at teaching you some of that stuff. But I've used, so I used somebody to help me format the book into the EPUB, the various EPUB format, EPUB and Mobi formats or whatever. That didn't go horribly, didn't go so hot either. Like, I'm not sure how easy it'll be for me to make updates. You know what I mean? I don't feel very in control of that. I should tell this story quickly. I use Scrivener to write, and I love Scrivener as a writing tool, but I kind of wish I would have, in retrospect, I kind of wish I just would have opened a Word document and written it, or gone totally Markdown, one of the two.
Right.
Because I definitely spent a lot of time mucking with the formatting, you know, especially with a book with code in it. I think it's, you know, if I was writing another book, I spent too much time trying to get Scrivener to output the formats for me, like EPUB and Mobi, which is one of the things it advertises.
Scrivener is not good for code.
It's not good for code. It's not good for, it's just unobvious how it's good for writing, right? It's a great product for writing, but other than that, it's like writing a draft and that's it. And then you have to get out of that. So, but back to your question. So yeah, I spent maybe $300 to $500, you know, for those EPUB and Mobi formats from somebody. I did use a trick. I basically hired this is sort of what you know, Rob Walling will teach. Hire 3 contractors on Odesk. You know, none of them were very expensive or whatever, and I gave them each a chapter to do. And boy, did I find out who the best one was really fast.
Yeah.
You know? So
exactly.
It's totally worth it. Whenever I hire contractors from now on, I am always going to hire in 2s or 3s because I got burnt. I used contractors to help me with the graphics on my sales page because I just can't do anything in even Paint.net or Adobe Photoshop or anything. I'm very poor at that. I think I have an eye for it, but I don't know the tools at all. So I found a contractor, but I went through 2 others one at a time, so I wasted a lot of time. Like I hired a contractor, wasn't cutting it, waited too long, cut them off, hired another one, still wasn't cutting it, and then I hired the 3rd one, and he, you know, paid a little bit more money. I mean, the other advice I'd give you is, you know, don't fall for the, you know, if the range is, my heuristic is for most tasks, it's like if somebody's $5 to $7, you know, like there's a good chance that person's not going to work out. As soon as you get up over 10,
right?
You're probably a bargain and you'll like them, right? It's sort of what I found. So I was being too cheap with that person, and I hired, you know, at that point. So I used somebody for that. I've got a good guy that I could trust now. Like I needed to change to the site recently. I just sent him an email, and you know, it got done. You know, so spent some money on that, probably $500, maybe $1,000, but nothing like the other guy you guys had on the other day who was like, I think I'm going to spend $5,000 on creative in this thing. I didn't know how you guys didn't just say, man, you are wasting money like to that. I mean, he may be right. You know,
I don't think he was though. I think he's in a different place. He he's in a place where that kind of budget is a little more appropriate because of the income levels that he is generating and because of the market that he is targeting. He's going after very large enterprises at this point, which are going to be producing, significant amounts of income. That $10,000 that he invested is going to have itself paid for 5 times over with his first enterprise sale. So it's not inappropriate for him to spend that kind of money. For us, maybe it's not quite as reasonable. I mean, I spent $1,500 on my marketing page for backboneplugins.com, and it was totally worth it. I'd spend that $1,500 for that result again because I made a good $5 or $6 grand off of that website just in increased sales because of how good that site was done. But I'm not going to spend 10 grand on that site because I'm not making 10 grand off of that book anymore.
Right. I mean, just to share a little too, one of my concerns is, I like this audience, I've built. I definitely am one of these people, but I have aspirations for more like building more of a SaaS product to something bigger, a bigger idea. So it's challenging to think, I just want to crank out another product because, I mean, we won't get into it, but I've done a couple of other products that are, smaller in scope. So I feel like I'm almost ready to do something bigger. And so that's where I kind of struggle with, continuing to build products in this space.
Yeah.
I think the other thing I figured out is I don't enjoy writing that much. Like, I think I'm a pretty good writer, but I don't enjoy it at all. Like, I'm slow at it. I'm very, it's a very painful process for me. So I'd really like to, I'd really like to do something more like videos probably the next time. So.
And so my advice in terms of products and services and whatnot, if you want to do anything on the internet, build a product that you can sell one at a time first. Just learn how to sell something first before you think about doing a SaaS, because there's a lot of things that you're going to learn in that process and a lot of the squeamish qualms that you're going to get over quickly doing one-off sales that you'll need to be able to get past before you start doing SaaS stuff.
Yeah, cool. I would say also that it's just like look at the long run, right? You're in the beginning of a 3-year process,
right?
Minimum, and then so it doesn't it's tempting to compare it to what I could make consulting, but the thing is like you're building a foundation for a thing, so you won't this is just the cost that is required to build a foundation.
Yep.
But
right.
I think we should probably be. I
think we should wrap it up here. We're at an hour and a half already. So
okay.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it. I'll continue listening.
Thanks for. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I did want to mention too. I mean, obviously we'll send this out. Hopefully, you'll get a couple of sales from here from EntreProgrammers. We need to make sure that people know what site to go to buy. You said it's is it JavaScriptFrameworkGuide.com?
Yeah, JavaScriptFrameworkGuide.com. I'm trying to think. I really, this crowd of people, I wasn't thinking about sales. I probably should be at every turn or whatever. So I didn't set up a discount page specifically for you. But, at the time people listen to this podcast, if they want the 20% off, if they're really interested in the product, I did sink a lot of time into it. You could go to JavaScriptFrameworkGuide.com/Hanselman. I can't believe I'm using somebody else's podcast on yours. Or you know what? I can set up a page after this.
Yeah, set up. What I was going to suggest too is like if you want to, now's kind of a good opportunity. I could speak for Derick and Josh, but I'll like when this episode comes out, I could easily send an email to my entire list. Just set us up with like an affiliate thing on DPD or something, and then I don't know if you guys want to do it as well, but it's a good excuse to send an email to list to say, hey, EntreProgrammers episode came out, Craig's on here, and here's the discount code or whatever, and you can buy it through there. And then
I definitely will. I have some. I'll figure it out, but I have some technical challenges because I have 3 products technically, right? Like so one link. Having the different packages makes it an interesting challenge. I almost need a separate page but I can definitely set one up for you guys. So.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, thanks again, Craig.
Yeah. Thanks for helping me through that at the end, guys. I appreciate it.
All right.
Take care, guys. See you later. Bye.
Take care.
Wanna start a business, but you just know how to code. Listen to John, Josh, and Derick as we figure it out. We are the EntreProgrammers, and we'll teach you straight up to